Come on.
There's a trail on Gene Hackman's land.
Come on, let's go.
It winds down a mountain and through time.
Almost without exception, every time I walk this path, I think about people who were here, 200 years ago. Can you get it? Come on.
The history of the place appeals to him. So does the fact that his home outside Santa Fe, New Mexico, is 1,000 miles or so from Hollywood. Here, between movies, he can live his life in private.
That is some thick steel, too, you know?
Dan Lenahan is one of the world's experts on underwater archaeology.
That's magnifying it for you, right?
And no stranger to CBS News.
Now, let us pay a reverent visit to a quiet place.
He guided Charles Perrault through the wreck of the USS Arizona during commemorations in 1991, marking the 50th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor.
We never enter this place, this area, out of respect for the fact that the Arizona is a tomb, is a grave.
So how does this thing drive?
His office is in Santa Fe, about as far from the ocean as Gene Hackman's house is from Hollywood.
I'm not a natural diver.
But it was in Santa Fe they became friends.
Spit of land.
And diving was what brought them together, here in the Dry Tortugas.
You can see what's part of the history, the battle down.
One day they got to talking about adventure books they liked as boys. And that's when the idea of writing one came up.
And I think I said, well, how about a pirate story?
I started realizing that Gene might be serious about this. And I said, well, okay, well, you first then. Let's see what you would do.
What began as sort of a dare not only got written, it got published. The Wake of the Perdido Star, an old-fashioned historical novel, a sea adventure set in 1805, complete with pirates and shipwrecks, and a happy ending. Even though they live in the same town, they worked separately at home.
Bunny, take a break.
With all the usual distractions. Gene Hackman wrote his chapters longhand in spiral notebooks. Unorthodox to say the least, their method was a little like the building of the Transcontinental Railroad. Picking different starting points, they met in the middle in this case being the Cloud Cliff Cafe.
I would have some pages. He would have some pages. We would trade. We'd read them over while we were ordering and eating, and by the end of the couple of hours, we would have critiqued each other's work and decided where we were going to go from there. Talk was scarce as the sailors prepared. Quince took one last survey of the ship and tied himself in.
What Gene Hackman called his audition chapter, the one that got them started, is a storm scene inspired by his own experience weathering a typhoon in the South Pacific.
The seawater came over the bow in housefulls. It hit the quarterdeck, then burst upon the sailors on the main deck, all tethered in their spots, helpless to ward off the tons of water. Jack could hear screams as the men gasped for air and prepared themselves for the next wave.
Hackman and Lenahan, the two diving buddies, couldn't resist writing diving into the book. Diving as their characters would have improvised it 200 years ago.
How much of this book is the two of you bringing something out of your own past?
A lot more than we realized at the time. It's funny that we've both talked about that since it's finished. And we both realized that we had similar early backgrounds.
Hackman quit school at 16 and joined the Marines at the end of World War II. Dan Lenahan, too, left home at 16 to go to college. A kid from the Lower East Side of New York City, he found himself in Greensboro, North Carolina, just in time to get swept into the civil rights movement.
Became a very turbulent time for me. We got kicked out of school eventually, went on the road, became Jack Kerouac for a year and a half.
Who did you think you were writing for?
I suppose I was writing for my mother. I don't know. My father was a pressman in the newspaper. My grandfather was a reporter, as was my uncle. So she always wanted me to be a little better than my dad, to try to achieve a little higher level.
And that's been ringing in your ear?
That's been ringing in my ear for a while, and I think maybe I resolved that.
And being a writer then goes back to the source of the writers in your family?
Yes.
An astonishing assessment of his own achievement from a man who always wanted to be an actor, even as a child in Danville, Illinois. From someone who's made something like 70 movies, who's won 2 Academy Awards, an actor's actor.
When he fires that, take out your pistols and shoot him down like the mangy scoundrel he is.
Among the characters he's created, Popeye Doyle in The French Connection, Harry Call in The Conversation.
God, not this woman.
Unforgettable roles that have secured his place in cinema history.
One could say, you know, that I have achieved some manner of success, but it's like the difference between being a doctor and a lawyer and being maybe a laborer or something. You know, that I feel that in some ways that my efforts at being an actor are so all instinctive, and that I hadn't really maybe paid my dues in terms of my contribution to the firmament.
The Wake of the Perdido Star is selling well, but has had mixed reviews.
The fact that you're being judged on your intelligence and your skill as a writer and your skill as a storyteller, that was very tense for me.
And being criticized.
And being criticized and finding that you're vulnerable to the critics in a way that I hadn't experienced before.
But Hackman and Lenihan would be willing to try another novel.
And in terms of us writing together, again, we've talked about it. We have some ideas, but Dan is currently writing a nonfiction book, and I'm just kind of getting old.
But at 67, Gene Hackman shows no signs of slowing down, even though he's been telling interviewers for years he's planning to do less acting.
We took the path by my house, like always.
A soon-to-be-released thriller called Under Suspicion with Morgan Freeman is one of 3 films he worked on last year.
There was no heartbeat, no heartbeat, no heartbeat.
You act, you paint, you dive, you write books. What else is on that list?
Well, I'm a pilot, and I've raced cars, and you know, I've done a number of things like that.
Like the roles he chooses, the life he chooses is varied and deliberately challenging.
I need the diversity. I couldn't. I don't think I could stay here all the time. Can you get it? Come on.
He seems uneasy living just one life. Gene Hackman is, after all, the man who dared himself to write a book and then wrote one.
Come on. Where's Dutch, huh?